Welcome back to another Omni Garage video. So for those of you new to the channel, this behind me is my daily driver. It's a 2021 Tesla Model 3. This is the standard range model, and here we are in New Zealand. So we're talking in kilometers today. I've put about 18,000 kilometers on this car in the 6-7 months of ownership to date so far. What I wanted to do today is talk through some of the things that I've really enjoyed about the vehicle and some of the things that are frustrating, but I don't want to turn this into an electric versus petrol argument, because there are some fantastic benefits of having an electric vehicle like the Tesla, and there's some downsides as well. We'll touch on those very briefly, but this is not going to be a comprehensive why should I get a Tesla over a petrol powered or a diesel powered vehicle. So let's quickly touch on those pros and cons of this being an electric vehicle. So this being the standard range model is rated for about 520 kilometers off a full charge. It's got the new LFP battery, which is able to be charged up to 100% on a daily basis, which is fantastic. I find that a pro. If I was buying one of the older Teslas that recommend holding your battery charge between 20 to 80%, it would be a bit more frustrating. But what I can do with this is pull this into the garage at the end of each night, plug it in and come back to it, generally with 100% battery the next morning. Now, how far does that battery go? It does not go what Tesla advertises, 520 kilometers for the standard range. I would say I get somewhere between 400, maybe 415 kilometers, depending on the weather. And keep in mind, I have only owned this car through summer, so I haven't had the winter months where generally the battery takes a bit longer to heat up, and you do potentially have some of the range eaten up by that colder climate. Now, performance-wise, it's fantastic. This is, again, the standard range, so it's the slowest of all of the Teslas. Not as slow, though, as the new Model 3. This is the 5.6 seconds 0 to 100, whereas the newer models that are coming out now are 6.1 seconds. So I'm pretty stoked that this was the one that arrived on my doorstep. Now, instant acceleration is really nice. The regenerative braking as well is nice. We're not going to go into too much detail about that, but I think one of the things to factor in is those are all the niceties. One of the things that you can find is passengers may get sick in this car. Not physically sick, but I think it gives you a very strange sensation as a passenger with that instant acceleration, and it can be quite touchy. I know that Glenn behind the camera, he quite frequently feels a bit sick.
Oh, sitting in this car as a passenger, it's like I'm sitting on a roller coaster, right? And as soon as that big dip comes on the roller coaster, your stomach drops and there's nothing for you to, there's no sensory level, right? So you don't hear anything, you don't necessarily get that initial wind up feeling in the seat. It's just instant, and I just feel like I want to throw up the whole time, eh?
Now, you don't feel like that in the driver's seat though, do you? When you're driving this car, no, you can see it coming.
Well, I know when I'm going to do it. I'm holding on, so yeah. But as a passenger, it's a bit of a crook car to be in for me.
So
anyway.
If your partner, your friends, your kids are prone to getting car sick, I think that you've got to expect that they're probably going to find themselves not feeling too well in this car, even under normal driving circumstances, because it is really touchy. You put your foot down and this thing flies, and again, you let your foot off the accelerator. That regenerative braking means that you don't need to touch the brake pedal. You're putting power back into the battery, but it lurches you quite a bit. Now, you can change the driving modes to change that up a bit, but I think that is something to be aware of with pretty much any electric car with that instant torque and regen braking. Now, one of the concerns for me when buying this car, which was quickly alleviated, is the fact that it's a small sedan. So I was really worried about storage, especially using this as a daily driver. Now, boot-wise, you have a pretty decent amount of storage in here. One of the things that I have found to be a bit restrictive is the height. Because you have this fixed panel here, it's not like having a hatchback. It is really restrictive to basically this opening right here. But what I have found is you can easily fit a few suitcases in here. Then you've got the added benefit of being able to lift this here, and got some jackets and bits and pieces in here, but this goes really deep. So you can actually go and fit a pretty, well, probably a cabin size bag in there, or your groceries. There is a lot of room in the boot. And then also down the side here, we've got some bags. You've got a bit of a deep storage pocket in there as well. And this carries on to the front of the car. So if you follow me around to the front, one of the benefits of not having a engine under the front hood or the front here is that you do have a big storage bin. So here again, you're limited on height. You really, it kind of tapers off, so you couldn't put anything too big in there. But what I've found is anything that is, you wouldn't want to put a hard shell suitcase in here, but if you put a soft bag in here, I use it for some charging accessories. There's a first aid kit in there, but this is quite handy. You can fit quite a few groceries in here. And typically what I found I use this for here is if I'm buying takeaways, you know, pizzas, fish and chips, and I don't want it to smell out the car, this here is a good place to put it. One of the downsides to this though is if we have the hood closed, you can open it from the inside of the car. So if you stay there, I'll open it up. Now that will release the latch. You can do this on the app as well, so you can do this from outside the car, but while it will automatically open there is no way to automatically close this. And one of the frustrating things that I find here as well is I can't try and slam it down. I can't, you know, there's no way to push it down and have it latch. You need to push down basically on either side of the Tesla emblem there. And I don't like that. I don't like having to touch the paint too hard. I prefer if that was able to just be slammed down from the inside and latch nicely. Inside the car as well, keeping on the same theme of storage, you've got a lot of room to store things in here. Now, each door pocket has a cup holder, which is great. The center there has 2 cup holders as well. If you fold down the piece at the back, the armrest, you've also got 2 cup holders in the rear there, and then the storage bin in the middle. So your center console area, what you've got here, obviously your phone charger, you've got an area here. Now these are optional extras that you can purchase from Tesla. It was 35 New Zealand dollars to basically get these velvet lined trays, but you've got one at the top. The bin goes really deep in there. Likewise for this piece, you've got your velvet tray, but then again underneath there you've got a lot of storage, and it goes all the way up to the cup holders on the inside there as well. Now something to keep in mind, I would recommend you spend that $35 and you get those velvet trays just to give you some organization within those bins. But the other thing that I'd recommend that you buy is a little divider here. So I purchased this one here online. You can get them reasonably cheap, but these cup holders are actually quite sizey. So I found that any kind of drink I was putting in there would wobble around quite a bit. So these here are spring loaded. I wish the car came stock with this because it would match a lot nicer, but I think that's something that you definitely want to buy. Without that, you're spilling drinks in this car. Now, the technology in this car, we could make a separate video on that and probably talk for an hour. It's great, however, I think that Tesla have probably tried to go a little bit too far above and beyond with some of the tech in here at the detriment of actual daily use. So an example of this is the glove compartment here. Now, looks really nice, but there is no actual physical button on it. The only physical button that you're going to find in this car apart from your steering wheels would be your hazard lights up the top here. Now, to access this, you have to do it all through the screen, which is all very well the first time you do it. There's a bit of a novelty in doing that. But every time you need to go and access your glove box, to have to go in, especially if you're driving the car, you've got your passenger leaning across, going into your menu, opening the glove box. I find that quite frustrating, and I know that passengers in this car do as well. I think there probably could have been a way to hide a button quite nicely on here, or a little latch. There could have been something differently done. I don't think that was necessary. That flows onto the air vents as well. So the interior is really minimalistic, and I find it's really sleek. I do like the look of it, and it is really easy to clean, but trying to get air pointed in the right direction from this vent here, when again you need to do that all through the screen, and you have to manipulate the flow basically on the screen. It does give you a visualization as to where the air's coming, but it's so much easier in any other car to just go and move the physical vent and point that direction where you want it. I find that that's quite frustrating in here. I've tried to set and forget it, but if you get in the car and you do really want to concentrate it on a specific area or concentrate it off, you're playing in there for quite a long time versus a traditional vent. Now, something to keep in mind on these vehicles as well, if you are in the southern hemisphere, basically you are using your phone as your primary way to interact with the car, and that includes using it as your vehicle key as well. Now, there is a proximity sensor. Now, that proximity sensor for the United States is located on the left-hand side in the mirror assembly of the car, which would be your driver's side of the car. So it will sense someone coming toward the driver's seat, and what it will do then is automatically change the driving position, so the seat, the driving settings, the steering wheel placement for that driver who has approached your passenger door or your driver's door in the United States. Where that's frustrating in the southern hemisphere is it's flipped. So if I'm in this car with my wife, who also has the phone key set up, so if she goes and hops in the car on the passenger side and I'm approaching from the driver's side, well, this here thinks she's the driver and I get squished into her driving position. It's really frustrating because it is a 2-button press. You've got to go here, select your correct driver, and if you're hopping in and out of the car, that is really frustrating, and I wish there was something that Tesla did specific to the Southern Hemisphere.
I didn't know that it did that.
Yeah,
that's weird. You'd think if these cars were being delivered to this side of the world,
yep,
that Tesla would have, you know, they're real big on tech and innovative. You think that they would be able to sort that out?
Yeah, it's super frustrating, and there's no way to, I mean, I'm the default driver on this car here. There's no way to override it as such other than manually going in. And I've tested it out. I've had her phone in my pocket, she's had my phone, and it works perfect. But it's really frustrating. Now, I could go quite deep into everything that the infotainment system does on this car, because essentially everything that you do on the vehicle is controlled from here, but I'll just talk through a couple of things that I really do enjoy about this. Now, one of the things is that I can open and close the trunk of the car on here, so I can close that and that will close the boot. You can open the front, but you can't close it, so that's a little bit frustrating. I wish that it had the same mechanism as the trunk on the car. But there's a couple of features in here as well that I do enjoy, and it's the first time I've had them in a car. So if you go into your service menu, you get your tyre pressures in there. Now, because the vehicle is not running right now, we don't have any tyre pressures that come through, but it's nice. You do get an alert in here letting you know when certain things aren't going right. It's air pressure below recommendation for tyres. And if I click on that, because this is a full infotainment system, that will actually take me to the owner's manual for the car and give me the correct specifications if I weren't already aware of what those are. The other thing in here is the fact that software updates come all the time. So I found that I quite enjoy it. You know, when a software update pops up, I can go in here, have a look at the release notes, and it will tell me everything about what's new with my Tesla on any given software update. So for instance, in the last release here, you know, we had some updates on charging time estimation, some updates on preconditioning, some user interface updates as well, new language support. But there's some cool stuff in here, you know, light show, blind spot cameras was something that was added. And in the past, things like this, so your blind spot cameras, this is what you can see on either side of the car. Now, when I'm indicating, if the car was driving right now, this view, the way I'm driving, I think if I can probably put the car into drive right now. I can't put the car into drive right now because we've got everything open. But what will happen is the blind spot camera will pop up here the way I'm indicating. Now, that wasn't something that was with this car when it was delivered. And in the past, a feature like that, well, you'd have to go out and buy the new model year car, whereas the Tesla just delivered that update automatically. I thought that was a pretty fantastic update, and it's nice to know that generally every month you're getting a new update with new features, and they're adding all sorts of different things all of the time, including different abilities to entertain yourself while you're on the go, new games, and also different interface options. So another thing I've really enjoyed about this car is the interior lighting. Now, my daughter typically will sit in the back seat in her car seat, and she likes to color in, she likes to read books while we're driving. Now, the interior lighting in this car, there's something about it that it doesn't bug me as a driver. Typically in other cars, if I've had lights on in the interior at nighttime, it's been really distracting. There's just something that's subtle. They've got 2 lights up the front here, but also 2 in the rear, and I find that I can't even notice when the rear lights in this car have been turned on. It keeps her entertained in the back, but it also takes my frustration away. All right, so on the exterior of the vehicle, now this is something that was quite frustrating from stock, but it was easily fixed, as this car doesn't come with any mud flaps. So what I did have to do is go on Tesla's website, and it's fantastic that they make these accessories, just a bit frustrating it didn't come with the car. This was an optional extra, and it does come, this is your standard piece, but you do have a longer piece that you could put on as well in winter times. Now, that was necessary on this car because the way that these wheels are set up with the offset, they kick a lot of debris down the side of the car, and I was noticing almost all the way up to almost halfway down the door panels was just getting kicked with muck every time I was out driving, especially when the weather wasn't too nice. These have fixed things, but it's a little bit frustrating that they are an optional extra. Now, coming up a little bit higher on the car, I think one of the things that makes the Tesla so unique is features like this. Now, there is a functional reason for this. This is for aerodynamics, to try and get that wind to flow a bit better. I don't know how many more kilometers you get out of range for it, but there'll be a method to the madness. So I've worked out thumb on here, hand on this piece is really easy to open. But anyone getting in your car for the first time or the second time always struggles with this. I've seen the people trying to push here, how do I open this? Pushing here, two-hand method for it. And what I found, the con to that is that the area around your door handles, even though this car has been paint corrected and ceramic coated, this area here turns into an absolute scratch mess. I would not like to own this car in black because literally you would have a 6x6 panel there that was scratched way more than any other part of your car. Once you're used to this, this is really easy.
But then when you get inside the car, if you're used to a latch or something in the inside, like a little door handle, there's nothing here on the panel here.
No, so your door release mechanism is the button here, which is actually quite ergonomical, right? You go to open your door, you put your hand here and your thumb here and you open the door. Now, people who have been in this car for the first time have quite frequently went for this here. Now, this is the emergency release handle. Now, what that will do is it will release the latch of the door without first lowering the glass on the window. So when people go and do that, there is a risk, because this hasn't lowered itself away from the trim here, that you could break your glass. So it is an emergency release for that very reason. But it is quite frustrating when people are in your car for the first time. They will generally go for that there. I would imagine there are Tesla owners out there who have smashed their side windows of the car because people were opening the doors incorrectly. If we shoot around to the boot, again, modern cars, most of them have this these days, but it is really nice. You've got a button at the top here that you can press. That automatically lowers itself. And again, on the opening side, press the button and that will open up for you. So your only piece that is more manual than anything else would be the front of the car, which will open the latch automatically, and it is on a gas strut, but it will not automatically close itself. Now, one of the other adjustments you have to make when you buy an electric vehicle is the fact that you've got this. You're plugging into charge rather than going to the petrol station to fill up. Now, people always ask me, it's the first thing they ask, it's about the range, it's about the charging, it's what if you run out of power while you're driving. Now, look, if you're the type of person to run out of petrol in your car, you're probably the type of person to also run out of charging your EV. I've run out of petrol once in my life, and I was quite a young fellow when that happened. I've never run out of petrol in my adult life, and I have never got close to running out of charge in this as well. Now, one of the things that you do have to do a little bit differently, which the Tesla makes it really easy for you to do in the navigation, is just plan ahead a little bit. So I know that this is rated for 520 kilometers and I'll get about 400, 410. So I just have to plan for that. Now, one of the things that is a benefit to this car is the fact that every night when this car's at home, it gets plugged in. So when we wake up and hop in the vehicle in the morning, it's at 100% charge. So that doesn't happen with your petrol powered cars. You don't have a full tank of gas in the morning. So you start every day with 100%. If you are doing a road trip and you plug in your destination in the Tesla navigation, it will tell you, hey, look, you're going from X to Z. You should stop at this point along the way to charge. Now, for the Tesla superchargers, which there are very few of in New Zealand at the moment, which is a bit of a downside, but it will show you at any given time how many stalls are available. So you know that, hey, look, if I'm heading to this charging station and 7 of 8 stalls are taken up, there could potentially be a wait. I find that I've never had to wait at a Tesla supercharger just because these cars aren't all that common yet, although they are becoming more common in New Zealand. But it is something you have to adjust. And if you're using third-party charging networks, we did that recently. We did a bit of a road trip. We were in Whangamata and we had to go to a third-party charger. Now, what you can find is this car will not report when they're out of order. It will not report when they're busy. So you're going to have to just learn by experience there a little bit and probably not run your battery all the way to, 5 kilometers left, because there is the risk that you pull up to a charger and it's not going to work. You always want to leave a little bit in reserve.
And what about when you're charging at night time? So off a usual plug, plugged into the wall in your garage, how long will it take to charge this?
Look, so it's fairly slow. So if I was charging this just based on the normal 240 volt that they give me, look, I could probably go and crunch some numbers, but if I brought this vehicle home and it had probably about 30% charge, that, well, it was at 70% and we needed to get 30% overnight, we'll probably be looking at somewhere between 6 to 7 hours to get that. So if you are running this battery really low and you're doing a road trip back to back, so Saturday you go and do a road trip, you bring it back at 20% and you want to get up and go again at 8 o'clock the next morning, your standard wall charger will not work. That's where you'll want to buy the optional Tesla, basically a Tesla wall charger for home. So it delivers higher voltage of charge to the battery. That's something that I haven't found the need for yet, but it is something that would be nice to have, especially if you're going to do trips back to back. If you have a good supercharging network in your town or your city though, you probably can get away with just using the normal plug. I've got away with it for the whole ownership of this car, and we don't have a supercharger nearby. We just have destination chargers at a couple of the malls. They put out about 7 kilowatts per hour versus the 2 kilowatts per hour that the standard wall charger will do. So you can do it without superchargers and you can do it without a high-powered wall connector, but you don't want to be doing 2 road trips back to back. So there is a really quick look at what it's like to daily drive one of these cars. We've talked through some of the things that I really enjoy about this car, and then also some of the things that are frustrating. Now, we haven't gone in depth around some of the specific features around the Tesla, like the autopilot and the overall driving experience, but let me just say it has been fantastic. This is a really easy and enjoyable car to drive. I do miss having a manual transmission, but I think as a daily driver, this is the type of car you want. It's comfortable, you've got all the tech in there, it can drive itself, and if you want to have a look at any of that type of content, Tesla's website's a great place to go. They've got some really in-depth videos around the capabilities of this car. I'm also today wanted to talk through the things that I enjoyed and the things that I don't, some of those little things that you don't know about this car until you actually purchase one and start living with it. So if you enjoyed the video, please make sure to hit the like button down below. We'd really appreciate it as well if you hit the subscribe button. We try and publish videos as regularly as we can, and we've got some similar videos like this on the channel of the 2 Subarus that, well, Glenn owns and the one I've previously owned, so the 2007 WRX and the 2019 STI. So if you enjoyed this video, you might enjoy those too, so stick around and give them a watch. But otherwise, thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video.